Go to public comment on non-agenda items. Want to have a public comment on non-agenda item? Good morning.
Hi.
We need someone without Meg O'Leary here anymore. We can count on Meg being here, but thank you for filling in for Meg.
Meg, but
And appreciate the update.
I'm Becky Baraki, Firelight Meadows County Water and Sewer District Vice Chair. And just reporting that we are on our way with the evaluation that you requested. WGM is working on that. We also received some good news last week that we received a grant from the Montana Department of Commerce to do our clearing. So no specific news, we are just on our way, and hopefully I'll have more specific news for you by the April deadline.
Great. Sounds good. Good luck.
Thank you.
And we'll call the regular meeting to order. Just a reminder, phones off. Anyone else that may be online, if I missed them for public comment? Let's see. Okay. We'll jump right into conflict of interest. None. And Dick, can you hear us all right?
I do. No conflicts.
All right, then we'll jump right into the consent agenda. Keep it in order. Everybody okay with the minutes? Go into operating report. John, improve. Morning, Clark. Morning. Wait for this to pop up.
One more page up. All right, so for the month of January, it's a pretty productive month. The facility treated 19.4 million gallons. Averaged approximately 99% BOD removal, 99% TSS removal, with a total monthly nitrogen discharge of about 3.05 milligrams per liter. So some ups and downs, but pretty solid month. As you guys see, we received 45.2 tons of BOD, 27.4 tons of TSS. We removed 44.6 and 27.08 tons. So we're doing a great job. Treatment efficiency is high. Throughout the month, had some failures, had some equipment failures. We got some stuff repaired. We continue to work on the asset management directives, continuing to work on a true sampling plan for the district, working on an operational strategy, and we continue to train and develop our team and get them where we would like them to all be, which is as highly qualified as possible. But for the most part, facility operations are pretty solid. So we've been very thrilled about that. Moving into this month, we're looking at starting up, sending our reuse water up to the YC. So we made contact with Rich Chandler, and we'll probably be doing that here in the next 10 days. So I would imagine 40 to 60 days worth of pumping to get Pond 1 back where we would like it to be. So we'll start that up here shortly. First graph. Let's see. Is that the first one?
Yeah, Spanish Peaks.
Okay, so you can see where Spanish Peaks was above there. That's just a 3-year moving average of all annual flows. We will be diving in that a little bit, but I don't think that we're going to be out of our agreement on that terms. It just does show that there are a period of time where our flows from Spanish Peaks are above that agreement language, but outside of that, flows look like they should.
So this is the end of 24. This is the beginning of 25. This also correlates with the higher flows that we saw in December. So we're thinking, I got to check with John to see what Montage was doing.
This is going to be great. Nice job. As long as we can read it properly, but
yes,
I think the key is, everything we've done has said gallons per day for SFE. Not to say you need a new chart, but how does that track with the projections that you created? You've created a lot of different models on this.
So these two solid lines, this is their daily average flow of 116,000. This is 80%. So anything that's above this blue line is over their daily max.
But we have to take that in a yearly average.
We have to take that into.
And so I'm assuming that once April 15th hits, and by the way, the resort's closing during the week, which is going to change things a little bit on our, thought about that when it closed. So it closes, I think, around that mid-April during the week and only opens on weekends. And so that's an early one to have midweek days, could be 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's great to see though, that.
Yes, and we'll put those numbers together for you where you'll see that annual average flow, and we'll
Great.
make sure that it doesn't actually tip.
And that's part of our annual letter that we'll go to Spanish Speak Secretary.
So roughly, what is it, gallons per day per SFE permitted? Do you know what that is by any chance?
I didn't know.
Yeah. We've had such a wide spectrum,
Yeah.
you know, that it was 48 and then it was 60, so.
We'll start cracking a little bit deeper here. There's just your influent flow for the month of January to the treatment plant. So pretty stable, elevated between 600,000 and 800,000 gallons per day. There was a little spike there closer to 900, but flows were pretty elevated for the month. As Johnny scrolls through these, we kind of covered these up in the above summary, but this is just another way to take a look at that. You're looking at your influent loadings of BOD and TSS, your nutrients. You can scroll down and see our effluent. And then of course, effluent nutrients as well. So very good treatment for the month. The last graph is probably one that we didn't cover in the summary, and that just shows our E. coli run, which was well within A1 limits. In fact, the last 2 weeks, our E. coli was a 1. So fantastic treatment, especially there's no chlorination at this point yet. So this is just the MBR, the biological process doing its job. Biosolids.
These wet tons.
Yeah. So total production for biosolids last month was relatively heavy. We dewatered around 210,000 gallons, created around 100 tons. So busy month, but being well managed.
Water use, I wasn't able to update any of these graphs. So we'll have an update next month on where we stand for water. Jesus.
Yeah, collection and distribution. Some major spotlights, for all 3 departments. I think the team is working really, really well. They're getting a lot of stuff done. Water's up and making sure that all of our permit compliance sampling is done for the month of January, and they are now working on the month of February. Collections, of course, also has been busy. So it looks like they've got a list of some of the tasks that they had been doing. Some of their larger items were finishing up the logjam out here off of Little Coyote. But January was productive yet quiet for them. It's a lot of catch-up work. It's a lot of in-house work. It's a lot of inventory, asset management, cleaning, inventory, getting parts and things ready. The standard routine business, of course, happens. It's not a high season for locates, but if you come in, thankfully we haven't had any SSOs and we haven't had anybody calling about any sewage breaks. So we had a lot of time to allocate them to other areas of the facility, helping maintenance and prepare that. Any questions for me?
Clark, I have one. I know we're going to be talking about our strategy for the scent, what happens with the biosolids, but what do we anticipate that we can further remove from what we're sending here? I guess I'm not saying it well. How much more can we reduce what we're sending once the centrifuge is in place and we can more fully dewater what we're sending to the dome?
We can take a look at that number and I could get that to you. And we look at what we know we need to dewater or what we dewater on an annual basis and then calculate that by an increase in TS. So you'll be sending more solids and less water down the canyon.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of
So right now,
curious what the percentage.
you're roughly about 12%
Oh.
on
What
your
we're doing
table.
now?
Yeah, so it's
wet.
it's wet.
It's heavy.
The centrifuge, once we get it online and dialed in, typically, if everything goes good and polymer matches and all that stuff, hopefully we can double, maybe even triple that, get up to 20 to 30%.
Okay.
So that's significantly drier. And then, that saves on space and also allows it to sit there a little bit longer, so it can even dry out a little bit more sitting in the building. So, and then we were able to get our rate changed on that. We were being charged domestic fees.
Clark actually was the spearheaded it. So now we're gonna get charged biosolids rates from them, so that will save us significantly.
We're just contracting directly with Logan now. So L&L will just haul, there's no additional fees that they've been handling for us, so they straight haul from point A to point B. We have a contract with Logan now, so we're getting a much reduced rate. They just finished building an improvement project to their composting facility, so they're very eager for our continued business and our biosolids.
Good time.
Yeah.
And it implies that they have a commitment to it for longevity for us for the option. That was a concern for a while.
Yep.
What happens if they're
Main
phasing it?
concerns were a roll off a week. Hopefully we can reduce that down to 2 a month. So cut it in half virtually, hopefully.
Yeah. Outside of that, there's a very strong month for the team. Appreciate all our support we get from Zach, James, and Scott over at AE2S, and more to come.
You're gonna see a big March. You're gonna see a really big March. It's gonna be something. So it's good news.
Okay.
That brings up me financials.
Yep.
No anomalies, everything's running as it should for budget. There's nothing that strange that happened. We do have some more projects coming in from the work, but you guys can see that I've added the CIP projects here. There really wasn't too much of an update on anything that's been happening on CIP this month. We're working through some of those things, but I just want to make sure that you can actually see it. I do want to mention that we are moving to UB4 Kuzi, the new billing software, which means that not this next quarter, but the following user experience is going to change a little bit. We're going to update our merchant services. So I just wanted to shout out to everybody that that's coming, that just to be aware that billing is going to change. We're going to work through the process as smoothly as we can, but there will be some work on the customer's part.
Great. Well, this is good news. No anomalies.
Yeah.
Any questions for Amy? Al?
No, well, I think I agree with what I saw, that the biggest difference between budget and actual is really just the added legal expenses.
Yeah.
And then the work we did on.
Absolutely, which we just didn't budget for, but we did have funds, so nothing else has changed.
There's a lot of expense line items, didn't have any charges against them, which I guess we can say it's a good thing, but is that just a timing issue or is
It
it?
is, yeah. Yeah, it's just this time of year, things have slowed down significantly, which is what we expect. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on the financial report? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move it.
Second.
Mike with Al, second. Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Great, thank you. Good reports. Okay, committee reports. Dick, policy and benefits, along with Mike. Had a meeting on Friday, right?
That meeting on Friday.
Got it.
I think there's a couple additional changes kind of working through, but
Yeah, we just gotta line some stuff up with Montana code. Kind of is very specific, so we want to make sure we're in alignment with that stuff. But overall, everything's coming along pretty good, so we should have that finalized here this next month.
Great. Any comments, Dick?
No, I'm good with it. We had a good meeting.
Okay,
And at this time, the benefits part, there's no changes to the benefits. We won't actually know any increase until April.
That's right.
They come out in March or May.
I think May.
So
okay. Anything else on policy and benefits? Then Al and Peter, budget and CIP.
At our first meeting, Pretty high level.
About a week ago?
About a week ago, pretty high level overview, just kind of prepping to get into the budget process.
A lot of changes, we threw it at them, I took it like champs.
Okay. I think you shocked a few people at one of our last meetings there with some of those numbers with BizRad, but hey, let's get them out there. And the other good news on these committees, it's February. So it's nice to get a little head start on this and get a place in order. So again, any other comments?
We're just, we're waiting for the other leg, the wastewater stuff, which we will have soon. CIP stuff, phase 2, all our portions for CIP, so then we'll have the complete picture of the CIPs.
All right, we'll go to Flatiron, and we haven't had a meeting of the subcommittee, but in full disclosure, I have talked to Chris Leonard a couple times, who's called with questions, just clarifications. Didn't go too deep, but I know they're grinding their way through that agreement that was sent out and sent back in December, right? So we've had 2 meeting cycles. Chris, we just talked, I think, yesterday briefly. He's online. Maybe it'd be best to hear from Chris and then any other feedback from the committee members. But Chris, do you have any thoughts or updates?
Well, again, appreciate you guys getting to us. I wanted it to move more quickly. There's some new people looking at it that haven't been involved with the back and forth over the last couple of years. So I'm doing a lot of education I think is good, but it's taken a little bit of time. I do fully expect, even though I said this last month, so I may be losing some credibility, that we'll have it turned well before the next meeting, maybe even in the next week. I think we're really close. I don't, it's when you get it back, it's not going to be as dramatic. You're going to wonder why it took 2 months, but a lot of it's just some education going on. And I do appreciate your patience.
Any comments, Mike or Dick or board members? One thing I'd say is just, do we have the attorneys aligned to maybe for Q&A in this and make sure that it's as efficient as possible where we don't come to the next meeting and say, Susan or so-and-so? Chris, do you have the communication in line so we can make this as efficient as possible for the next meeting? Or
I do. And what Johnny suggested, and I agree with him, is that so we've got Abby and Brienne on our side. They're gonna, once we've got a clean set of comments, they're gonna go directly to Susan and introduce it there and have some dialogue lawyer to lawyer.
Right.
So that when it does come back to the board, it's been at least partially vetted by Susan, and it just seemed to make sense to start there and then get it to the board as soon as Susan's had a chance to weigh in.
always good to have Susan give recommendations for the board meeting if there is communication in between the meeting cycle. So, okay. Anything else on Flatiron? Not an action item, business action item. So now, Clark.
Yeah, we would like to request from the board the approval to procure a new software system for the district that will help us with data management through the water and wastewater sectors. This provider is AllMax software. It's a great way for us to have resilience. It's a great way for us to have efficiencies. It will reduce time spent from Johnny, Amy, myself, where we can actually take all this data, store it in one secured location. From there, we can generate a slew of reports, but it will absolutely improve our operational capabilities. From this, we can build many different things. Simple databases, simple input sheets, very high level complex reports. Think of whatever you could build in Excel on steroids. Not to mention, it continually updates and it aligns with that data, calculates that data, projects those reports for you without needing your continued manual user interface, which is what's nice. There will be some data management, but it's very condensed down and we get a large return based off this investment. Right now, we're a little bit vulnerable. Most of our stuff is spread out through all sorts of various Excel sheets. They can be corrupted. Some are, some have been. It's very cumbersome and it takes us more time than it should for us to put together these data reports and crunch this data. A lot of times it means I'm sitting in my office for the better part of a day, manually finding data and then actually putting that together, where if it was in one centralized location, I could pull that data, export it, draft it, do what I want with it, and actually bring real answers at a much quicker level to the board or to Johnny or to anybody that's asking about it. This system does help us with chain of custodies. It also can be set up if we ever did have a discharge monitoring report or any of our drinking water compliance reports. We can set that up in the system. It'll give us a 3-point verification versus 2 human eyes. Now you're also getting the computer set up, taking that data, presenting that. Again, it makes our job a lot easier versus checking an entire spread report. I'm checking 10% of that for accuracy, and then we can just get that submitted to the regulatory agencies.
Yeah, and it allows us to set limits and stuff. So if somebody was to fat finger numbers, it would throw an error so you know that it's not right. So to me, it's security, it's defensibility, QA, QC, and it validates all of our operational data. You guys have seen the spreadsheets that we work with. They're massive. They have been corrupted in the past where we've had to go in and fix them. So this just brings accountability, streamlines, and protects the district with the informational data that we need to have. So we're asking authorization for me to sign this agreement for $28,565. And that number may be big, but it is for water and wastewater. So really we're getting a two for one. So it's one setup fee for both sides of the house.
It's the recurring.
Yeah, no, that's
about 7,000 a year.
It's
I
7,000.
was just gonna say, that was exactly.
So it's a premier setup is the 20,000. After that, it's just a 7,000.
We budget for it all, or
No, this is outside of the budget, but this is something that we were looking into with the other platforms that we were looking into.
Have you used this before, Blair?
I have used similar systems, not Op10,
Okay.
but they've been around for 30, 40 years. They have a very solid reputation. I'm very supportive of having a software system.
I've used Out10. It was a precursor before Hawkwinds. Hawkwinds is the other database that is very similar to this.
It was a great explanation. And by the time you're done, I'm saying, how did we live without this? But it just seems like it's a check and balance. And I'll bet if you put a ROI on this purchase based on just labor alone, your labor in particular, being able to do out other things that are tangible and not, it'd have a pretty good return. I'm assuming it would, even with everything else that goes into it.
Yeah, it'll be wonderful for the district. I look forward to developing it with the AllMax team, with Amy, with Johnny, and turning that over for something that should live for a very long time within our walls.
Yeah. Okay. Other comments?
That's recurring annual, going to be fairly consistent.
Yeah.
7,000 rate, that's kind of their support package.
Support package and license fees.
Got it. Anything else on that? Entertain a motion?
Make a motion to approve acquisition of AllMax software.
Okay. Second?
second.
Okay. Second with Mike. Additional comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks.
New business, none. So that brings us to our friends at AE2S update.
This is Zach Freeman. If you don't know Zach, who doesn't know Zach?
Now we've met.
Zach's came out of the city of Bozeman, MSU before that with the masters in chemistry and operated Bozeman plant for 3 years and then helped us finish the plant over here and continues to help Clark down the plant. And he's going to present today on biosolids, mainly pat short-term and long-term paths forward. So I won't spoil the conclusion of that. If you already read the letter, you already know what that kind of says, but if it's all right with you all, I'll just go through my entire letter and then we can jump back to Zach to present. Okay. Let's start with storage reservoirs. So Johnny came down to our office, appreciate that, and we worked through a lot of what we're working on for you or scoping and work on for you. Zach's also leading the project over here to turn his old pond into a emergency retention basin that you can clean out better when you do get it relined. I believe Johnny signed that task order and we were already working on it anyway because we're potentially trying to get it done this construction season. Any questions about that work? Reuse program, we've given you draft of a task order to complete basically a future cost database for reuse and putting values on all your existing assets like the 7 Mile pipeline, for example, that we can amend to our reuse management plan along with updates to salinity management, salinity reduction plan, some other updates that are, that reuse management plan hadn't been touched in a year or two as a litigation. So Johnny's chomping at the bit to get us to get it in front of DEQ for reals this time, and get it accepted as your new regulatory document. So maps of all your reuse that has changed over since the last one was done. We have Brian Thompson online. Yep. Brian, is that in our court in terms of final edits and signatures?
Yeah, it's just under review with our operations manager, but it's we had a short increase due to the updating of the management plan, but we've kind of already kicked off some of those updates, so should be over to you guys shortly.
Firelight Meadows.
I got one question. Got to go back a little bit to the landfill solids. So that was a centrifuge project.
Yeah, and he's going to get into details on that.
Fair enough. I was just curious about the 4 million. Wasn't that 2 million a couple months ago? Now it's 4 million for the whole scope, or am I off a little bit on that?
Depends on which piece of the scope, but just the centrifuge is the 2 million chunk. There's upgrades upstream to solids handling that we want to do. Staff wants to do there, add to that. So yeah, it's if you go back to the 2021 bid, I think it was 1.8. Didn't do it. Ron bought the centrifuge a couple years later. Construction, but it was still part of the project, and we were trying to get Visrad to pay for the whole thing. We ended up getting them to pay for just the centrifuge. At that time, I think we updated the cost estimate, and it was in the low 2s, but it wasn't these ancillary systems like a plant and pump station, for example. We're going to upgrade. So we'll walk you through everything that's in that 4 million. After through sort of the overall picture of what we're doing for you. Firelight, Johnny came down, went through the scope, and we were close, but he asked us to bump up. It was basically to do all the preliminary work and get started on the permitting for Firelight Meadows once the assets are transferred, hopefully. Between HOH and Firelight Meadows HOA. What he asked us to change was to go ahead and take connection of wastewater to basically 100% design, because that would happen first. Basically let the reuse portion of it play out. We have to with DEQ, but go ahead and get them connected as soon as the ownership agreements hopefully follow.
So we're just editing that and put it back in front of him. Did I miss anything there, Johnny, or Liz? No, it just goes back to the conversation we have on break fire that out in 3 phases, which we discussed, first and foremost is getting their sewer connected. Understanding their use is gonna take a little bit more time. Water is kind of its own little entity and can be run separately. It's not a must top priority right now, so it's breaking it out and kind of trying to eat it in little chunks to accomplish the overall goal. So we'll do wastewater first. Reuse will start now, but it's going to take a while with permits, and then water last. Assuming everything goes through the one changes of ownership. Water master plan. David presented last month on the draft, and David, I don't know, do you have any updates or had comments come back from staff that you're addressing?
Sure thing, Scott. I am probably not delinquent, but I think Clark, I got you on my list to catch up with you to probably do more of a detailed run through. So that's one of my to-dos. Is catch up with Clark on the master plan. In terms of feedback, we're not necessarily incorporating any feedback yet, but the right now we're wrapping up the GIS dashboard on the improvements plan. So that'll be a deliverable for the March meeting. We'll be showing off the dashboard of the capital improvements plan and which map of which projects and where and how much for the board. And then the next piece was on the rate impact of the world, and you guys may or may not know, but Ryan Graff is actually out of the office. They've welcomed a new child into their family, so Ryan's out for about 2 weeks. So I don't have necessarily a rate update part for this board meeting, but looking forward to catching up with everyone at the March board meeting for everyone on some of the rate implications that was on my to-do list. So rates, dashboard, and following up with Clark on the master plan. That's my updates for the water master plan.
Thanks, David. I think that takes us all the way to the letter. Now we can jump back and give Johnny
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Going to talk to you about the landfill and kind of where that biosolids treatment is headed now. So we first looked at 4 different alternatives here to see what we could do. The first one is complete composting of all your biosolids and trying to reuse everything there with no landfilling of the biosolids, trying to get rid of all of that to the public. The second one would be kind of what you're doing right now. Rehab your existing composting, and at that point you'd probably still be landfilling 50 to 75% of your biosolids, so it wouldn't be a full composting. The third would be biosolids drying, which is you take your dewatered biosolids and you heat it up to try to get rid of all the water, and you get left with a really dry product that could either be landfilled at pretty low cost because you get rid of all of that water, or even used as a fertilizer if you could find someone to take that off of your hands. And then the last would be demo all of the composting, get a bunch of space left at your wharf for other upgrades, and landfill all of your biosolids. And within that alternative, there's a couple sub-alternatives where you guys buy your own hauling truck, get another employee and haul it all yourselves, or continuing contracting with L&L and getting their roll-offs and going that route. Risks with yourself hauling it and you have to have another employee, or continue with the L&L and their markup on that. So first, for expanding composting, major components are concrete in-vessel tunnels. So this is, constructed composting tunnels outside the building. Right now, there's the stainless steel ones. I don't know if anybody's been down there and seen those. This would be constructing bigger concrete bunkers that you could then compost in. But with that, we need new biofilters for odors that come off of the composting. And we need another hug mill mixer, an upsized mixer to mix in the biosolids and wood chips, as well as an upsized screen at the end so that your final product is able to be sold to the public, and some more equipment between blowers. And you would use all space in your existing composting building. So you would now need outdoor storage like a pole barn or something like that for your compost, wood chip, sawdust. And using all the space in the composting building doesn't quite get you to 20 years of composting. And the compost would maybe not be the best quality because it would be rushed with the amount of space that you have in there. What they call curing time wouldn't be ideal. And so there might be some heat left in the composting. So if you were to sell that to the public, they put it on their flower garden, there's still a little heat in there and it might kill their garden. So there's a little bit of risk in that. And so, yeah, I guess I just kind of talked about this. The advantages, though, is you get that Class A biosolids product, and this means you can sell it to the public for reuse, and that could potentially offset some of your disposal costs by selling that, and supports the sustainability resource recovery goals. And you don't have to transport anything down the mountain to the landfill. But the disadvantages are it requires a lot of land area. Composting is not exactly land or space efficient. It's operator intensive. We would definitely recommend at least an additional full-time employee if you were to go full expanded composting. Right now, even with the even with the composting that you do now, you could use another employee over there. It's pretty operator intensive. And it requires a lot of storage, distribution, and quality management. If the public sees plastic pieces in their compost, they're not going to come back and get more. So you really need to have quality management on the back end, as well as high life cycle costs between the operator time, all the wood chips that you have to buy, a lot more equipment to be running. It has a substantial high life cycle cost. And as I mentioned before, there's some site constraint challenges with the existing space. Doesn't quite get you to that 20-year projected biosolids. So there's already some risks there. And an additional one, if you scroll up, Johnny, just that I want to hit there, is there's a potential for PFAS in your biosolids. Any wastewater treatment plant has that potential. And so if you go all in on composting and selling it to the public, and there's a risk of PFAS, there could be some challenges in the future of getting rid of that composting. So there could be a huge sunk cost if you went this route. As well as installing the centrifuge would need enclosure for dust mitigation. Composting is pretty dusty. So there's some additional costs on that. Here is the expanded composting overlaid at the existing facility. The curing zones are using up most of the space, and those 4 in-vessel tunnels are outside. Those would be the big concrete bunkers, about 18 feet high. So there's a lot of concrete out there, and you can just see all the additional space that's required there. You can scroll down.
Do those 4 tunnels get rid of all the metal ovens that are down there now?
Yeah, exactly. So those in-vessel tunnels do replace the existing stainless steel composters. The existing ones are about as inefficient as possible for space-wise. So this is much more efficient. If we were to try to get complete composting, we would recommend just adding on what you have there. Yep. Thanks, Scott.
Given if we didn't use these components to the composting process, what would those areas look like in the plant? Would they be used for something else?
If we were to go completely away from composting, it frees up a lot of extra storage space for spare parts. So you could, you have a lot more space for pretty much anything. Even in the future, it doesn't necessarily take away your ability to put composting back in there if you wanted to. Or biosolids drying or something like that. You do have a big building now to work with.
So it's nothing specific, just generally have some more space and
Yeah.
potential for expansion of
Yeah.
odor.
Yeah, Clark might have some more ideas on on what he would want down there.
I think you'll see a layout of that alternative to just dewater go to landfill.
Yeah, it'll be the same sort of. If you go back up, Johnny, sorry, this is for the existing compost rehabilitation. We would need at least 3 replacement containers, because right now they're damaged, and the vendor recommended not even to use them. So we're running on just 2 out of 5. So we recommend at least 3, possibly ordering 5 replacement ones, and they're each at least $100,000. So there's a significant capital cost there, as well as we need more curing aeration systems. Right now, like I said, there's some bottlenecking with the curing time and getting good quality compost, as well as the existing pug mill mixer and trommel screen are kind of bottlenecks as well, and we would want to at least replace those. They're getting beyond, the 20-year lifespan, or even upsize those. And if we were to try to install the centrifuge to go to the landfill and go to composting, there's some complex conveyance that's required to try to either put it in a roll-off to go to the landfill or into the mixer to then create compost. It's pretty complex. And we would recommend doing a new outdoor storage building for finished compost so that we could reuse some of the space inside for additional curing that I mentioned before. So you can scroll up, Johnny. But again, if we went this route, we get Class A biosolids, so you can sell that to the public, supports those sustainability goals, and offsets some of the disposal costs. But again, the complex conveyance required hasn't been fully designed because it's pretty complex. And again, operator intensive, we would recommend getting at least an additional FTE down there, and requires the same composting, storage, distribution, and quality management for full composting. Again, higher life cycle costs, the site constraints are the same. Still would need an enclosure for the centrifuge and possible PFAS in your biosolids that could make this a complete sunk cost at the end of the day. And so here is a simple markup. We'd have a centrifuge on that southeast side of the building there. And in putting the centrifuge there, we would take up a lot of the curing zone. So that's why we would want some additional storage outside. And, we have an elevated conveyance system there. And that's where it would be either running to the roll-off or over to the pug mill mixer, and trying to lift biosolids up in the air can be a challenge if it's not dry enough. So there's some complexity there. And now moving on to the dryer alternative. This is kind of the sledgehammer to this issue. So this would be a new biosolids dryer, extensive ancillary equipment. So this means there's a boiler involved. You need to heat the biosolids. You need to cool the biosolids. So there's some cooling conveyance. There's odor systems. So there's a lot of equipment necessary. You need some new conveyance. Definitely HVAC upgrades in that building, and an additional biofilter for odor control. If you scroll down, Johnny. But major advantage is it produces a Class A biosolid, so you could actually sell it, and it removes a ton of water, so you don't have to haul very much if you were to haul to the landfill. And disadvantages are it's definitely the highest life cycle costs. You have to heat water up continuously, so that takes a lot of energy. So it's operations intensive. It would be a new piece of equipment for the operators to learn, as well as it's high temperature, high dust and noise, and redundancy isn't practical. So we wouldn't recommend putting in 2 dryers because they're expensive. So if your 1 dryer went down, then you would be left with just the dewatered biosolids for that period of time. But here's where we would put it. So we'd have the centrifuge conveyed to the dryer, and then from there conveyed to a roll-off. So it fits well within your existing footprint. Just showing you that. And then for landfill alternative, basically what we would need is new conveyance, right? So we would remove the pug mill mixer and put the centrifuge there, and we just need new conveyors to convey that dewatered biosolids to a roll-off. And as Scott alluded to earlier, part of the project is upgrading our digested solids pumps that pump to the centrifuge. Right now, that's a bottleneck. They can only do about 40 GPM, and that just really isn't enough to dewater all the solids that the wharf needs. So we would upsize those pumps with VFDs, new electrical equipment, which is an additional cost, as well as a bottleneck for all of the clean water that comes off of that. It has to be sent to the head of the plant, is going to an existing drain pump station that is undersized for what we need it. So we would have to upsize those pumps there as well. So there's 4 pumps, new VFDs, new electrical that is required for, and that's for any upgrade. Even if for composting, we would want to do that as well. But just where some of that additional cost does come from. But if you go to the advantage there, Johnny, it just landfilling has the lowest life cycle costs by quite a bit. Minimal new infrastructure, and it saves some space. Lowest O&M energy use, easy to operate for the operators. And if there's any PFAS in the biosolids, it's sequestered in the landfill. And from there, they actually do beneficially reuse the biosolids. The landfill actually composts themselves and uses it for average daily cover in the landfill. So it isn't just buried, it's actually beneficially reused there. But your hauling frequency is highest, right? So now if we're just taking all the biosolids and getting rid of it, you're going to be hauling more frequently. And to kind of clarify what Johnny and Clark were talking about, your question, Al, about, hey, if we get drier, what is our hauling frequency? It's about 40% less, going from 12% now in solids to 20%. Saves you about a roll off a week now. I wouldn't say we would get to 30 with the biosolids that are coming in, but 20 might be a good margin. And conservatively, I'd say 18, we should be able to hit with the centrifuge.
So with that and the renegotiated fees for tipping fees,
yeah,
their costs might drop by half.
Yes, yeah, current. I would say by about half. Yeah, what we're currently roughly.
What does that translate to in dollars? I mean, I guess.
So we were estimating it was gonna be 90,000 per year, so that would be really high.
Yeah, and my estimates were about $50,000 would be your annual disposal fee. From now to now.
Sounds like a 90-year ROI.
Yeah. Hell of a life on that one.
Yeah.
Someone's less break.
There's less to break too in some of these alternatives.
Yeah, exactly. You have a conveyor and your existing belt press, the conveyor, and then the centrifuge. So not as much equipment. You have to go back up, Johnny. Just a quick one. Between you guys hauling it and L&L hauling, there's the obvious, you have to purchase a new truck, which is about $250,000 for what I could find. Requires an additional full-time employee just for doing that, which might be tough to find somebody that wants to do that 24/7. And again, increased liability and insurance requirement needed to haul biosolids down this canyon here. And the higher life cycle costs just from truck capital, O&M for the truck itself, insurance, and that additional staffing makes the higher life cycle costs there. And for L&L, no new truck or additional FTE would be required, so you could get away with the existing personnel you have down there, as well as no additional added insurance. But the disposal cost on an annual basis would be higher because L&L has their own markup on everything. So what you see on your tipping fees would be higher if you stay with L&L than with the district hauling. But in the long run, that O&M for the truck, your FTE is actually higher than staying with L&L.
I want to add to that because we've had to do it in the past. In Oregon, we had to truck biosolids 100 miles one way. And when you haul it yourself, you're taking on all the risk and liability. So if an accident occurs, you spill it, you gotta have an emergency response plan, you gotta have the ability to go clean it up, neutralize it. So paying a little bit of a markup for somebody else to do it takes that risk off of our plate.
I think it's the elephant in the room is I can't imagine us getting into the hauling business. You got a lot going on here.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you got a hauling. And you're the guy that's on the Facebook Canyon account that you ditched it down by Portal Creek like last night.
You know, it wouldn't be great.
That one seems to be a tough one to assess.
Yeah. But it should be noted that this design doesn't choose one or the other. So you can, if L&L for some reason said no more, the same design, all you'd have to do is buy a truck and get somebody to do it. So you wouldn't have to change your capital investment on the conveyance or centrifuge or anything like that.
All you'd have to do.
Yeah, that's it.
That's a tricky one. I just want to meet this person in the interview process.
Yeah.
What's my job description? Okay.
What's the kind of long-term contractual situation with L&L? We monthly, do we have a yearly contract that
It's a service,
size?
it's by month.
Are they the only game in town? I guess that was my biggest question. Are we going to be? I hate to say it, but
We have
lots of
L&L
one
and Republic is the other one.
Okay,
So you
they have a couple options. You have a competitive environment to a certain degree. Okay.
Yeah, and for them, I wouldn't imagine them not wanting to because it's 50 grand a year, right? Of just, hey, drop it off, pick it up, take it away. So it's
I mean, that's their
it's
business.
a good that's
their
their business.
and it's not our business. We're pretty darn good at the rest of the show with that stuff. Okay.
So the next one is just a quick, if you scroll down there, Johnny, this is the life cycle costs broken out for each alternative there. The dark blue is the actual capital investment required. Orange is the disposal cost. What is that? The green, the green, sorry, is if you need an additional FTE. The light blue is woody amendment, so just stuff needed for composting, and then the purple is the actual O&M for each investment there. So you can see the clear winner is landfilling with continued contracting and L&L by a good margin. You know, even if we were to rehabilitate composting and try to keep your existing operations, like you said, the ROI isn't there. And it should be noted that the composting costs are decreased in this graph for selling compost. I wanted to see, even if you were able to sell every bit at $40 a ton, does it make it more competitive? And no, it still doesn't.
I don't think we're not at all.
And that
I was going to say, tell us about the market.
Yeah.
and that's
Are they waiting at the door right now to come in
absolutely
and buy it?
not. And I think a lot of our clients are seeing that same issue that have composting is one, people do understand the risk of PFAS now and that it is there. And consciously, we wouldn't want to try to sneak that in, right? We would want to tell everyone that came there, like, hey, potential PFAS in this composting, and then that would chase off a few people. But
We're not in Manhattan, so it's not like people can just stop by. It's just a lot more cumbersome to come to Big Sky and deal with this.
exactly. Yeah.
It's just not as if we're in the marketplace for this.
No,
You know better than
And if you were to try to
pretty clear
sell,
winner right there.
yeah, if you were trying to sell all of your compost, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's not a couple tons, it's a lot.
We're currently sitting on a bit. Or we have a small stockpile, but I think we've got that lined up to go.
Okay.
If anybody wants any, you know where I'm at.
Pass.
Good timing.
What a great exercise. I think it confirms everyone's assumption that was out there, but you had to go through this exercise to say, hey, what did we miss something here? This kind of wraps it all in and validates, I think, trying to do great things. You know, you got to be careful, you know, it's not the enemy of good things. We do a lot of great things. That tells it pretty clearly right there.
Well, the biggest thing, you guys have heard me say it before, when you look at anything, it's also what other things have help support, so your auxiliary support. So the upgrades that we've got to do at the plant, you know, again, beat a dead horse, but typically anytime you expand the plant, the ripple effect, everything that goes in with it. So, you know, the lift station's right next to the admin building. That admin building's connected. Because of how that's set up, you can split the basement or shop in the bottom. And, you know, that is almost a direct shot to the river. So you got to look at all the risks and operationally, you know, try to find what's more efficient. The man hours that go into it. So, you know, pumping 40 gallons a minute. You know, we've had to adjust the shifts to cover where we're trying to process the 12 to, you know, 14-hour day just to keep up with the current setup. And so those are long processing times that also affect the plant and you know, staff and their ability to be able to work. So getting this fixed brings efficiency, so you get savings in manpower and you can allocate staff to do other things, and then this doesn't become as cumbersome to operate. You know, we don't have the agricultural up here for land application, and you still have the whole mess of trying to get it there and apply it and all the regulation and stuff that comes with that. Even with composting, trying to get rid of that, there's only so many commercial nurseries and stuff around. Again, it's not something that you can just, you know, go apply. It's really good soil amendment, makes really good soil. You can use it in a lot of places, but you know, again, there is that outweigh the rewards, you know, and then again, point of control. We have compost that's going out all over. We don't know where it's being applied. And so we have to, you know, start logging who came in and got it and stuff in case something down the road comes in, and trying to figure that out would be a bloody nightmare as well. So, you know, even on the 503 and land applications, you have to log all that. Those are records you have to keep indefinite. So it's just trying to find that happy medium. This was a big project. It morphed. We kept adding stuff to it to finally we just met and said, here's all the options we need to look at so we can how we need to drive this train the next 2 years to get us one.
And it should be noted that going with landfill doesn't take away any other options forever. You can easily put a pug mill on the end instead of a roll off and go back to composting. We would have to then expand the building to allow for more bunkers and curing time. So there would be some capital investment on that end, but it doesn't take away if you were to say, you know, in 15, 20 years, whatever, hey, let's go back to composting. Maybe now it makes sense. You could still go that way, or drying, you could still do that as well. But now, yeah, it speaks for itself.
It's a no-brainer. It's just
I didn't want to oversimplify it, but get granular as well. You look at the challenges that are unique to the district, and we said it's not Manhattan. They're not going to swing over and grab. They're going to come to Big Sky. Number two, I don't know and probably don't want to know what factors you put in there for labor on this, but this isn't Bozeman. And when you start taking people on, you got to factor in a increased burden, benefits, everything that goes with getting someone probably out of Bozeman to come up to Big Sky.
Yep.
I just don't see a lot of long haul truckers advertising. No, just, and it's not a negative. It's just, you may, when you start looking at a $50,000 delta and things like that, we talked about, you can eat that up in a hurry, and whoever that resource is.
Yep.
So
agreed.
It seems like a little bit of the X factor is just the hauling cost or certainty of the hauling cost. I don't know if L&L would be, you know, amenable to annual contracts or something like that to stabilize the hauling cost, just so we don't get into a situation where all of a sudden they double the cost and, you know, we're having to deal with that unexpected budget expenditure.
Yeah, Livingston went through that. You always have the threat. Look, you get too expensive to buy a truck and hire somebody yourself. So it's like, you know, so,
we could talk to them, see if they'd be open to some sort of.
It was a hybrid too. You said you have L&L. You said you had Republic. There could be an independent contractor that would do this. That's one person that absorbs all his own. It just don't think it should be us. That's all. But there's a guy out there that may do this cheaper than they would do it. So you have kind of three resources for the long term. Not like this one person or one entity here. So it's great. Okay.
So
Nice job. Yeah, thank you.
next step will be to do final design of just the centrifuge, conveyor.
Yep.
Polymer. Pipe drain pump station.
Digested sludge pumps,
So digested sludge pumps to get it over there.
the lift station, drain lift station pumps.
This is a big decision. Should we? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, how can this be undersized if it's all brand new today?
These things are not great. We didn't touch these. These are part of the old SBR facility that we just kept. And I think you go back 5 years, I think. Operating under the incorrect assumptions that digested sludge pumps fed enough that once you had centrifuge, line drain pump station, we debated upgrading as part of the project all along. But probably should have, but trying to cut costs. So pumps up in there, I believe have just been replaced a couple of years before. Left it for.
So all this dated old stuff. So part of my just try to drill a little deeper into the discussion like earlier this year, maybe mid last year was like $50 million for the centrifuge. It's kind of it. Now it's 4. I'm just trying to understand how do we everything's kind of 2x. How do we figure out a way to reel some of these things in? What are the negative repercussions or what's going to happen? What's next, I guess.
Mike, it started out, I thought, at 700. Didn't the centrifuge you and I?
The original, if I correct, I think the original ask was 7, but then we reduced it because
We can do it in-
we could buy the centrifuge, we can just do the rest in house.
So Mike, we actually started in less than 7. Said we'll do it in-house.
Well, that was just for the centrifuge. The centrifuge ended up. Ron did get a pretty good deal on that. But the idea was, well, we couldn't do the centrifuge facility with the bid. Lock that out. And I can go back and get you exactly. So it became, okay, we have a centrifuge coming. RCI at that point was like, we just need to finish this job. We're not really interested in a change order. That would have been at least two something, I think, to get the electrical gear, polymer, and the conveyor. We didn't have any sophisticated conveyors. It was basically just replace the existing belt filter press with a centrifuge. This project is better. So it's got more to it in terms of conveyor equipment and setting long term. That project was really just get them a better dewatering piece of equipment. It wasn't what should we be doing for the next 20 years. I don't know that this carries them for 20 years, but
20 up there a couple times. So
It does.
I'm just trying to understand. So I'm not just our process seems to be a little off from my view. Because if we look, I'd rather look out 20 years personally rather than look at things from let's just solve this particular problem today. And I realize some of this is like the old guard, Scott. So I'm not just specifically looking at you two saying what's going on, but I don't think there's an unlimited bucket of money here. There's a lot of things that are nice to have in our capital improvement plan. Like we were kind of talking through that last year, I believe, and this is a 2x hit to what was probably in there. So I'm just trying to figure out where does everything come from, and is this the responsible thing to do? Not always just the nice to have and the Cadillac, which I think we generally have that over there. But there has to be some level of responsibility to these costs. It's crazy. 2 times, and they're not small numbers. So I'm just something's wrong with their process. I think that's my gut opinion.
I would just respectfully offer that it's morphed multiple times. So if you want next month, I can walk you through that. Like, here's what it was in the 2020, 2021 bid. here's what it became, with buying a centrifuge and just jamming it in. Versus here's what it is now of walking away from composting to just dewatering all.
Fair enough. Is this in our plan? Our capital improvement plan, 4 million?
Well, we gotta prioritize and this has got a higher priority than the pond. So, you know, it's one of those things, Mike, I don't want to be the dead horse in the room. I wasn't here prior. I would have never advised you not to do biosolids with the plant expansion. And how things were looked at beforehand, it was just simply a plug and play, which was not going to work. Only a small fraction of the equipment was bought. You didn't buy the rest of the auxiliary units to go with it. And to install it correctly, I've run centrifuges in the past. They turn at very high RPM. And if you don't install them correctly, you get vibration or other things, and then you got a piece of equipment that's sitting there and you can't run it. And then we have no redundancy. So this is primary plus redundancy. That's why we're leaving the press. We had the press evaluated. We can get parts for it. And the volume of solids that you're producing SVR versus what the plant does now. Look at how many times we've cleaned out that pond and the money that we spent. That's where your solids was in the pond too. So my recollection, this last time was 800,000. Time before that was probably pretty close. So there's a couple million right there.
So that's part of the ROI, I think, you know, maybe it's not 90 years anymore, it might be 40. But I'm just trying to, I feel like right now today, we have to do this. That's what I feel like. And what we have to do is now twice as much as what it was 6 months ago.
Right.
That's where my frustration comes from.
And
not you guys. I think our process in the old guard, look, I guess I take responsibility as part of the old guard, at least for a few years. So whether there was like a misleading part of that equation, I'm not sure, but it was presented to us, we need a centrifuge. Great, let's get a centrifuge. I didn't know there was another $2 million in spending to get this thing to actually work. So that is where I think we should focus on.
I don't want to say that it was misleading. I just don't think it was looked into in the depth that is currently looked into. Now, definitely we can go over it with a fine tooth comb. This is with anything. Here's the whole picture. You know, wish list, so to speak, on operational things. Is there certain things we could do to probably cut costs? Absolutely, 100%. We just gotta dig into it a little bit deeper. But again,
Mike's point though, I think we are trying to shift that so that we're taking a solid look at everything so that we don't repeat these past mistakes. I think you're right, like we just didn't have all the information, but that's kind of moving forward what we're trying to move towards.
Yeah, I understand the evolution of it all. I get it. You know, part of some
How
of
do
these
we
other.
not have to stack them over and over again?
Right.
That's really what you're asking.
I can't continue. I think the best example I'm seeing, and we talk about this all the time over other meetings, I go, wait a minute, what is it this month? And it's not saying fall. It's very similar to when you go out and get a builder to give you a cost estimate on the home, or even you have a contract in the home. And he says, I'm going to build it for $400 a square foot. Well, your project cost is $650 a square foot. And that's common all the time. People said, hey, I thought I was building for $400. We need project costs, comprehensive project costs to any capital improvement that we're taking in, not just, well, the centrifuge is $500,000. Well, if it costs $2 million more to do that, we just need to understand the big picture. The bigger fear I have is sitting through, especially that last BizRad meeting was the best meeting we've ever had with the mine fund. But the fact of the matter, it was overwhelming to see the water needs, not just wants. These water needs are overwhelming. And that hit home. And then we sit down and talk about something like this. We have to look at the global picture. But project costs versus specific items under CIP, we need to make sure we factor in all the other costs that are associated with it.
Well, we have to remember that in 2019, we knew costs were escalating. And then 2020, 2021, they were crazy. We had 5 bid alternates. We did one with a wharf, which was the covers.
The trains.
And came back to the train.
Yeah.
And just in a year and a half, those went up like 30%. And it's only gone up since then. I wish it was different, but you know, we have clients all over the Midwest and West that are parking projects and not doing them because of the economics. And we have a project that I've been telling you all about for 3-4 years that is yet to get off the ground. Very, very similar, basically directly comparable to your plant. That's $88 million in Estes Park, right? It's just, I wish I could explain it better, but it's labor, materials, it's the cost of doing work in resorts. It's the switch to CMAR contracts with contractors. They don't duke it out for bids as much anymore. It's insurance, it's housing their employees, it's a lot of things, but and I don't think, I'm not saying inflation is the reason for the 2x. There is more in this project than there was originally.
Yeah.
And originally it was just jam this piece of dewatering equipment in there. And get them more dewatering capacity, and it's more of a, let's stop composting because that's actually a bad move.
And to go along with that, the original 2 million was jam it in more like a 10-year lifespan, and we've since changed it to fit a 20-year plus ability to put in an additional centrifuge and make your dewatering capacity go beyond that 20 years, whereas before it was jam it in and get what you can. So that explains a little bit of that. The design scope did go from, hey, we're just gonna put it in, to let's actually do it the right way if we're gonna do it.
Let's give you a storyline next month.
Yeah.
With the letter, the usual letter to, because it's a good question of why, to your point, like there's not an infinite amount of money for stuff to cut.
I think that's it. Yeah, I'm almost done here. But
I think you hit it.
so it's hopefully not redundant, but you'll be back before 20 years, I promise you. And the other thing I think is I don't even really want to know the details, Scott. I trust that you're recommending things that you think are relevant and important. So that's not the problem. I'm asking you guys to collaborate to make sure you're delivering a comprehensive plan that is not full of, well, here, just one more thing, because inside the capital improvement plan, it's no longer what it was 6 months ago. That's a problem. And so this whole like view of, I think you guys should do the deep dive into, I don't even know the details, the deep dive into how we got to this point. That's how I think we avoid this down the road and deliver something that is as real as we can get at the time. Then the things that escalate, I'm extremely familiar with things that have escalated a little bit north of what we thought they were going to be. I can give you a list of projects that are it's unbelievable actually. So I don't think that's where I'm having a problem. I think I'm having a problem with just how we got to this point and trying to figure that out in the spirit of what does the future look like in our capital improvement plan, 7-10-year plan, make sure that's as real as we can get.
Yeah, and I want to add to that when you're going from reactive to proactive, right now we're doing double work, so we're trying to pull stuff up in front of us so we can get it out in front of us to get it playing.
Yeah.
I know the CIP looks a little scary, but I'd much rather have that picture in front of us so I know how to drive the train. We know how to plan, we know how to raise the rates when we need to raise the rates and get that out. So you're constantly moving that down the road. So, it's what is coming in the next 10 years. It is very scary because we got a lot of stuff in front of us, a plant and water stuff that needs to be done. And so again, that is that cusp that the district's grown, it's hit its capacity, and now you got to expand. And typically, if things are done right, you've had that master plan and you've constantly looked at that forecast to be able to change it. So we are changing that process right now and trying to get all that out in front of us. When we do CIP work, we don't dive into it as deep for engineering costs. That's our next step is what is the meat and potatoes? What do we absolutely have to have? If it's not 20 years, can we get to 10 when we know that there's a high chance the plant's going to be expanded? And what's that going to look like for additional solids coming down the future? So trying to phase it, set it up so you can add to it coming down the line. So
thank you.
Recap real quick. I think here you brought up some great points. I think some of these are avoidable and some are not. I think the inflationary pressure is unavoidable in some cases, and you had a great point. On the other side, some of this is avoidable. I really believe it's avoidable, just going back to that history, and I'm on the hook more than anybody here, I think, other than Dick. But the fact of the matter is, some of this is, and we need to improve that. And I think that the second item is we got to look at project costs. That's what I'm saying, and it's that stone soup deal. Well, if you really want to do it, great. Well, we can't do everything free. We can't do everything that's on that chart. That would be wonderful if we had those financial resources. We don't. We're doing wonderful things elsewhere. We got to.
I have a feeling if we have those financial resources, we'd find other things to spend them on.
I mean, we just would love to be perfect. Don't make now perfect the enemy of great. We're doing great things in this room. Don't make perfect the enemy. But project cost is key, and this is it's reoccurring, these numbers, and we just got to work on it as a team. That's all. Yeah. Inflation, we get it. We all get it in Big Sky, Montana. So,
Brian, I just want to ask a relatively simple question. I agree with everything you said, Mike. And initially, when I saw us maybe having another meeting, I sort of held back on this question. But I agree, we don't necessarily need all of the details in this meeting, and I appreciate your encouragement to kind of work this out. One of the things I want to make sure I understand is our treatment level, because we treat to such a high level, is that generating even more biosolids than, say, a plant that wasn't treating to this level? Is that what's causing some of our problem, or is that an incorrect statement?
I want this one because he's sitting so much lately. MBR doesn't allow any solids downstream. It doesn't create more solids, and the biology
it catches more.
Yeah,
So I mean, there's nothing we're pulling more out of what we're.
It's not in the ponds. It's not in the ponds.
You jump.
I'm sorry. I was sitting there going, it's in the ponds.
Yeah, and so had we understood how much was going into pond 2 in the 2018, 2019 era, I think we would have said to staff, you realize when you have a backstop that doesn't allow that to happen, you're going to feel like you got solids coming out of your ears, because that's what happened. And you won't have those two large bills to hog out on 2 anymore. Not $1 million a pop.
So let me ask the follow-up question. Zach, did you say you worked for the city of Bozeman?
Yep.
So you may have some experience with this. If I'm running a plant that doesn't treat to the levels and I'm discharging into the river, am I correct in believing that some of this stuff would just be getting dumped in the river?
It does.
Diluted
0 to 30
milligrams
per liter leaves a conventional activated sludge plant over the effluent. The SBRs, there was a little more than that at times going into pond 2.
So to kind of summarize and to use Les Lobel's term, one of the unintended consequences of treating to such a high level is you end up with a lot of waste that you got to do something with. And now we're figuring out how to handle that. So I wanted to hear that, take that through my own mindset, because to some degree then I could see where we wouldn't maybe recognize that would, what it's done. It's forced us, we've kind of outgrown the ability to compost because we're getting such a volume, we can't handle it.
Great point.
And we didn't necessarily anticipate that consequence when we designed the plant that treated water to such a quality level.
And you're at a point where you've worn those composting vessels out, they're damaged, and so it's time. And so it was like, well, is that the smartest thing? Get it back of the envelope, like, I don't think so. We should give up composting and just get it out of there. But it's by far and away the right move.
So that was the damage, not shoot, somebody drove a forklift into it or something. It was just more wear and tear. We wore them out.
Wear and tear because you have to do them around constantly.
Okay.
So they're gonna get me.
Steel frames, 30 tons.
Yeah.
They weigh a lot. It's hard on going up and down off trucks, get loaded, unloaded. They live their life on 20 years.
Yeah, sorry to take it back to that basic level, but
Yeah.
We talk about this stuff, but I don't know how it works, you know, I haven't seen it happen, and so to break it down and better understand it helps me and maybe helps some other people too, but that helps, so it's, because I agree with him, I feel like we're having to be reactive, and that's what's frustrating in this situation, is like, gosh, why did we know this was coming? But I better understand pieces of why we didn't know.
Well, you're trying to save money then too. We talked about the plant drain pump station with Ron and Grant and decided to let it eke out more life and not redo it then. I don't recall the exact conversation over the digested sludge pump station. I'm not sure that I understood that you could only pump 40 GPM. So it's just time and changes and convolution. The details of the project, some inflation, but you're right to say, wait a second, you know, we can't just keep doubling our projects in our CIP as we're building CIPs. It's unsustainable. So
it's a great conversation. I'd add one last piece to it, and it's I said avoidable and not. And there's no blame game. Easy with Ron not being here or whoever. But this sounds like we should have been able to predict this. We should have been able to predict it, and I think that's what you're getting at. There's no blame, but what you just explained when Al asked the question, that was something that we knew was coming.
yeah, and I probably should have said.
No, I don't want. We don't have to talk who should have done it or this and that. What we're looking for is the ability to predict these expenses more accurately, and then identify the ones we can avoid. But the fact is, that's what's kind of scaring all of us in this room, is we need to be able to predict them, and this was something we should have as a team. You should have asked the question.
They were a good alternate. So when we decided we couldn't afford it, that's when I should have said, just remember, you're gonna have to do it here pretty soon. And I didn't. I was just like,
Again, no one's blaming. Let's focus on the one word. We need to be able to predict these expenses a little more accurately. That's all.
Well, is there a sixth option here that is maybe not an option, but just continuing to haul the wet biosolids? I mean, that's what we're doing now, right? Without the centrifuge.
And redundancy is the issue there. Yeah.
Okay.
So right now it's only belt press. So if that thing went down, yeah, then you'd be
and
not in a good place.
13%. It's wet.
Right.
It's not the right thing.
I'm not saying it's the right thing, but
Fuel, everything. I agree.
There's our non-cost, you know, that is going to cost us more in the long term.
Yeah.
It's to just keep hauling.
Yeah, we're making it work, and then you got the caveat that you got a $400,000 piece of equipment sitting over there.
That you want to
the price goes down, we can't just slap it.
Yeah.
I think that's why though we had to dive into it, because when you said 90 years, I'm kind of with you. Do we need to even do this?
Yeah.
It's gonna take 90 years.
I mean, we currently have the workaround, but it is labor intensive, and then again, we're having a piece of equipment sitting over there that, you know, you'd like to utilize.
And saves us money in the long run.
It will save us money in the long run. Again, I don't know how long we can let that sit over there. I definitely wouldn't want it to sit over there for 5 years. So then, you know, what do you do with it? Do we look at a different piece of equipment that could be cheaper, like newer presses? There's a host of things that we can look at to make it cheaper in the long run. So this was with the centrifuge in mind.
Yep. Great conversation. It's good teamwork. All right. Anything else on that?
You have to vote on one right now?
No, you know what? This is old business. And I was thinking about it earlier when we talked about that AllMax, just to put things in the record. Is that something that should be an action item when we didn't have it in the budget and we said as a board? I'm thinking back to, is it good to be on the record to say, we asked that question and we went ahead with it anyway?
On this?
No, I was just using that AllMax as a reference point. You know, yeah. Sometimes those action items are great to have in the budget, but this one is old business and does not have an action item.
On the AllMax, so you didn't spend $100,000 on our scope as part of the Water Resources Recovery Facilities contract or construction administration. That data management was scoped in there, and one time we looked at OpWorks and We want you all to pick what you all like. My only point here is that changed too. You left $100,000 of our contract on the table, didn't spend it. And bought that for what? 28, like.
And that's a good clarification on that topic, because the question was asked, is this in our budget? And the question, it was answered, no, but technically it falls under our budget.
Yeah,
at that point. So just a clarification, now it's in the record. I don't want to make this any longer, but the fact is, it's always good that someone looks back at it and says, well, you said it wasn't. And this is just keeping good housekeeping.
So you ended up with a product your people chose instead of what we would do. And you like I said, you left $100,000 on their contract.
So we actually saved about $74,000.
You can look at it that way. I don't know that we would have spent 100 on that and figure out your data plan.
Maybe make a note of that. Hey, this is great.
There are victories today.
Yeah. Shot one up, Mike.
As far as this, we'd actually like you to get it to design, and we can have some more conversations and dive down into what is the best option in design.
That's what I was getting at. This to me should be an action item for the board, and it's under old business without an action item or a vote. So do we want to put that in the next agenda to formally adopt direction on that?
Absolutely.
Great. Does that make sense? Yeah. This is a big issue. And it's all working. Good communication. So great questions. Anything else on the AE2S update?
No.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Canyon update. Do we have Mace on?
I don't think so.
Who else do we have on today? It's always good to know who's who on here. Get Sherry all covered. Okay. All right, since we don't have Mace, does anybody want to talk about the canyon? Let's look what we have in the room today. Some great communication. Thank you for leading some of that charge.
I think our biggest one is a coordinated effort to talk to all the outside auxiliaries, but Kristen is heading at it, so you want to speak to that?
I think it would be great to update that BizRad meeting the other day, because that was, that basically get everybody at their next meeting. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Do you mind sitting at the table, Kristen?
No.
Since we don't have Mace today, you'll be guest appearance. Thank you.
Much less technical.
Might be a good thing.
Well, we've been wanting to do this for a while, to sit down with all the conservation organizations in Bozeman. So that's Upper Missouri Waterkeeper, Trout Unlimited, Greater Yellowstone Coalition of American Rivers. And so we have representatives from all of those entities, as well as Jeff Boyer, Carlton County Commission, and Mace and Johnny. We're meeting on March 6th in the afternoon. So it's really about getting everyone on the same page about what's going on, the history, where we're at now, because we're so in it, but they're not. So they don't necessarily know how much work has gone in and where we're at. So yeah, and if any of the board members here are welcome to join if you want to.
You said March.
It's in Bozeman at the WGM office on East Main.
Kristen, is that some conversation that'll maybe carry over into the where the long-term strategy plan session that we're doing in May?
Yeah.
Something, because again, you have the kind of broader coalition all coming together.
Yeah.
That's a good
And
update.
my original thought was to have that conversation at that meeting, but it seems like with the recent lawsuit and the media, that it would be beneficial to have
more
that
dedicated at that
conversation
focus
ahead
group.
of time. Yeah.
And then BizRad did request the entities to attend the next BizRad meeting in March,
Which is the following week, yeah.
which is the following week.
Okay, great.
Because they want to hear from those entities about their concerns or support for the Canyon project, so they should request that. So kind of a preemptive pre-meeting, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Need to get on the same page and be talking the same language.
questions? Don't have to be one or two be there.
That could be a maybe. I mean, we can, hopefully,
I'll forward the meeting invite to you guys and thank you, got it on your calendar.
State.
Divisions.
Yes, thanks, Joe. That's right.
Cool. Legal update?
So YC has won their lawsuit, so we are 6-0 as a group. And we also got word, I do believe it was in the board package, that charges have been filed against Mr. John Meyer for misconduct. If you guys remember, that complaint was filed almost 3 years ago, right after I started. So he has been formally charged by the bar. Yeah.
And what was the particularities of?
You'd have to read the letter that they sent. It was quite intensive.
13, 15,
Yeah.
20 different things.
Just all kinds of different procedural.
Procedural stuff.
Yeah.
there's a lengthy article on Explore Big Sky
Yeah.
about it. It kind of summarizes.
And then there was another report on KZB something or other.
ZBK.
Yeah, that we've got to send a corrective statement to because they said we raised rates $1,000 per person and misnamed the one, but we're kind of used to that, so pretty easy statement that is not correct. That is all I have for legal updates.
So nothing on the Boyne annexation agreement? That's on.
We honestly have not touched that yet. They've been really patient with us. That one should be pretty easy. We do have a caveat with that. They send us a what's the agreement? Landscaping agreement, which we're just going to incorporate in with the annexation. And then we got some easement language we got to clean up.
Landscaping agreement.
Yeah, they have specifics. So if we were to go replace a water line or do a repair, how the work gets restored.
Really?
Yeah.
They're putting that requirement in there.
They are.
Yeah.
Trying
I
to.
don't see Chad up there, but okay. But it's in our court.
It is in our court.
All right, good.
We were trying to get through that higher priority stuff. They came in. I think they were the last one to submit. So there's no additional SFEs. It's just really just land that they want to add to.
I think that's a good thing because I think we learn every time. Went through Spanish Peaks, took the longest time. Now we're in Lone Moose. I think we're going to learn more out of Lone Moose, and then by the time we hit Boyne, we can have that one fine tuned. So maybe not push it right now. Just let
they've been great.
See if there's something we missed.
I just keep it on the list so I know that it's
Right.
it's still there. So.
Yeah. And we continue to learn. So. All right, District on Tap annual meeting. This is your project. Anything new and exciting there?
We have confirmed the Wilson for that date. And now we're just going to be putting the program together and continuously advertise it over the next few months. So we have a good turnout.
You can put it on the board's calendar. Be a
Yes.
good one for all of us to have. Just want to double check it's on mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a different date, right?
Yeah, so it's a Monday, so we're not gonna have the regular scheduled meeting on Tuesday. We moved it to Monday night. Doors open at 5, meeting starts at 6.
Okay.
What's the date again?
September
21st, but yeah, it's looking like there was an invite sent out for the 14th previously, right?
I don't
Let me
know.
take a look at my phone.
Because it's on my calendar as the 14th. Separate from what I put in.
Yeah, me too.
I have to look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be a good one just to fine tune if there's been a change.
Yeah, we'll send out a
September. Yeah, I got it on the 14th too. 5 p.m. Water and Sewer District meeting conference room. Okay. Yeah, let's just see, make sure we don't have any confusion there. A Monday night meeting, you could have someone miss that one,
Yeah,
like me. Okay. What else? Anything, John, that you want to talk about?
nope, I think everything's good. Next meeting is March 17th, tentative.
All right, that being said, as long as it's okay on the 17th, we like to adjourn the regular meeting and then take 5 minutes, make sure everything's off. We'll go into a closed session for an HR discussion. And then we will come out of that if we have to adopt anything, but just make sure that we turn everything off and we close out our regular meeting. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So move.